podcast. Find out. I've got this connection going on. It looks like it's good, so we'll find out. Keeps coming back and forth. Gotta love it. Great times. Going live as I normally do with Restream on Facebook. Also, our YouTube channel for Two Native Sons, the Twitch channel, and then my personal Facebook page. And then I've also got on the phone going live on Instagram. So multiple signals going on here right now. But as we start the show here, of course, want to give a shout out to the sponsors that we have. And as we look down here, we can see on the screen, if you're watching live, you can see the sponsors that we have for the show. As I was blanking on, it was good times. But the sponsors that we have is Rock City Cafe, Tabala's Food for Thought, Tabala Creative Clean, and the Chicken Coop. As of course, anybody that's in Colorado Springs, anybody watching on IG, if you come in to Colorado Springs, highly suggest going and checking out those three different locations, community, and really driven on the community. Shout out to Ricky, to Angel, Ricky's wife, and Brittany, the waitress at Rock City Cafe, for what you guys do for your passion, your focus on the community. Then we have Tabala and Jasper Axelrad. Shout out to the two of you, Tabala and Jasper, for your guys' focus. I know Tabala's not a person, but the entity that Jasper has with Tabala, the focus that she has with focusing on small business owners and the small businesses in Colorado Springs, and her drive on really highlighting and bringing to life those individuals. And then we have the Chicken Coop, Miss Sherry out in Black Forest. Shout out. Thank you, Miss Sherry and the Chicken Coop, for who you guys are, your spirit, your passion for community also. And I know Miss Sherry's got a vision that's bigger than just the business. So grateful for those three sponsors that we have for what we're doing with the show and what we do as Two Native Sons. I have to laugh though, because I was doing some researching. I was looking at Anchor. That's the platform that I utilize for the podcast piece with the different podcasts that I have, but kind of playing through there. And I didn't know until I was going on here, because for whatever reason, the website would go through laptop. It doesn't show this, but on the mobile site it does. So got a couple of shout outs to individuals that have favored this podcast, the Journey Beyond Divorce podcast, and that's Jasmine Lewis, Shantae Stone, and then Bridget. No, Bridget's got her own podcast here. Her podcast is, it's thinking, I was looking at this, it's like, let's see, 30s Divorce and Dating is her podcast. But it was interesting because I had a couple of people that I see here that have favorited the podcast off of Anchor. I've looked on other platforms. I don't. If you are one individual that has gone and subscribed or made this podcast a favorite of your own, would love to know who you are, so I can give you a shout out for just the support and the love that you're showing me to allow to come and do what I do on a weekly basis. Just going and sharing my journey, my the tools that I've utilized, and allow people to come on and share their story and their passion, or what they're all about, and trying to overcome that journey and get to their side, because we're all going through some shit, whatever that is. Everybody's going through their own different storms and whatnot. The boats that we're in may be similar, but it's that storm that's going to be different for everybody and whatnot when it comes to going through life. But if you go through the aspect of having conversations with individuals, and how many of you, when you take the time, how many of you actually reaching out and having the tough conversations? How many are you reaching out to speak to individuals and have the conversations that are normally not taking place, normally aren't spoken, and maybe you're not having those conversations because maybe you're worried about what somebody's going to think? But we have to look at it, because I look at the aspect of the ability to have the conversations, to have those deep dive conversations that you normally wouldn't have, because it's part of being a human. It's part of the growth experience. It's part of finding and looking at the perspective of somebody else, seeing what they see, and see if there's something that we may be overlooking. I've spoken on it before. When we look at it, each of us have our own lenses that we're looking at life through. And that will kind of dictate how we perceive life, how we see things taking place, how we view things, and what we may not see because of how we're looking at life, the perception that we have. So it does take the ability to step down and look at how that other person is viewing life, how they are taking that perception and seeing a situation. How are they taking that situation and breaking it? Because if you look at it and you take the time to understand that everybody's looking at life through different lenses, it does open up the door where you can go and see if there's something that you don't know, or if you're not noticing, or if there's another perspective that maybe would be a key tool for you, maybe a nugget that you need to unlock and that life in a different position, or even potentially go and question those beliefs that you have. Maybe question the paradigms that you may have had pushed into your head by somebody else, by friends, by family. And it's one of those things, because if you go and question, does that mean that you're not loyal? Or if you question, what does that mean for you as an individual when you have to go and question what has been a foundation for you potentially? What has been that belief that you've really leaned on and leaned into, and you're so staunchly hard pressed to hold it in and not go and question, what is that? And my question is, why is it something that it's hard for individuals to step off and take a look at that belief system, take a look at those ideas that they had before, and see if it holds true to them where you're at now? If we question or we look at something, maybe it shakes us where we have a foundational piece that's taken away. Maybe we're standing on a platform that's ripped out from underneath us because now that belief doesn't benefit who we are. That belief doesn't align with who we are as an individual. And so it's one of those unique things when you take the time to have those tough conversations, to have the conversations that individuals want to have, but aren't occurring because of the fact that we're scared of being judged. We're scared of what others are going to think, people are going to say. Because it is unique. I met with another business owner a couple weeks ago, a great gentleman, and we were sitting there having the conversation, and he had brought up the fact, he's like, you know what? It is very refreshing to have these non-normal conversations that a lot of people don't have, because it's just the status quo of society of not going and having these other conversations that are hidden and bring them to the forefront, and taking the time to get to know each other through these conversations that normally aren't had. And I found that unique because it is one of those things that a lot of people have the trouble or have the time to overcome the obstacles to express who they are, to share who they are, share those stories that really dictates who this true person is. But a lot of times we don't want to have these conversations because it is a piece that society tells us not to have. It's a conversation that we're scared to have because maybe we've been judged before, or we've had the experience that has dictated how we view conversations, how we view interactions that we have with individuals. And it's one of those unique things that it can really hinder us from having those deep, loving, strong relationships with others, because of the fact that we're not showing up as our true self. We're not having those conversations that we would love to have because of what we've gone through. And it's unique because for this episode, won't go through pod deck on this episode. We're actually together with good friends tomorrow. Garrett, he's been on the podcast before. Patrick will also be on the live stream that we'll be doing with Garrett tomorrow. And Garrett was talking to somebody else to have them come on. But if you never heard me utilize pod deck, like, what is pod decks? It's great conversation starters as cards that a gentleman, Travis Brown, created. And it's a beautiful thing because it does open up the doors to have those conversations where we aren't normally having those type of conversations. So tomorrow, I believe we'll be going live at 6:30 on Garrett's stream. We'll probably find some different to get these out onto the different streams for myself and Patrick. But if you want to see a different side of podcasting, a different side of the conversations that we have, come and check out the live stream tomorrow with myself, Garrett, Patrick, and Garrett talked about a special guest. So we'll find out. But it's one of those things that it's a lovely thing. So if you'd like information, people that are watching IG, if you catch this later before tomorrow, or anybody that's watching the live stream on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, send me a message. I'll let you know exactly where that's at. I'll send you the link and whatnot, but it's going to be exciting. But it's conversations. It is an interesting perspective when you start doing the work on yourself, you start opening up and you look the world in a different, when you look at a situation in a different light, you can start talking to individuals and have a nugget or a idea shake loose that you hadn't considered before. So I was talking to Mike Marquez on Friday this past week, so a couple of days ago, good friend of mine, and we were having a conversation, and he had brought up the fact that he was to somebody and brought up the fact that we're all broken. And the individual he's talking to was like, no, we're not broken. I'm not broken. And Mike's, no, we're broken. As humans, we're not perfect. We have a lot of people that try to fight the status quo, fight and say I'm perfect and be the perfect individual, which good luck, because now you're trying to play a game and end up showing up as somebody else that you're not who you are. We have this aspect of we show up and we have our mask on. And when Mike had brought that piece up in regards to the conversation, this really does play in regards to what I've experienced with the journey beyond divorce, my journey after getting divorced, for individuals that I've talked to that have gone through those tough situations, that have gone through and have dealt with an expired relationship or lost a friendship or a relationship. It's in regards that we go through and get to a certain part in our life and things start breaking down. We start falling apart. Things start falling and whatnot. And then us as individuals will try to grab those falling off as they start coming off of our foundation, and we start grabbing and we start trying to put it together and start piecing it together to the way it was. And it's unique because I've brought this up before, and this is something that Patrick has shared in regards with us individuals. Each of us are an integral part of every situation. Every situation that we find ourselves in, we are 100% the integral part of that piece of that relationship or that endeavor, whatever it is, because we're, as an individual, are in that situation 100% of the time. Pieces kind of switch around, things will adjust, individuals will be different and whatnot. But as individuals are always in the situation because we are there dealing with it, because it is us and that situation, whatever it is. And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, man, when you start having individuals start trying to pick up the pieces and try to put back the puzzle or start rebuilding the foundation, and you're trying to do it on your own, what makes you think that by putting those pieces back together and repopulating your platform or repopulating who you were before that relationship started crumbling and you went on your way and now you're dealing with that situation, what makes you think that you're going to be a different person? What makes you think you're going to be in a different situation because you're gathering those pieces and you're putting it together? And I found it unique as if you got to that point and you were broken, or you're doing a situation and you don't go and do the deep diving, you don't do the work on yourself, and you don't go down that path of journey and go through your healing process that you need to do to a better spot after getting through it. What makes you think that if you keep pushing and you're the same individual and you push over there and you create that platform, what makes you think that the situation is going to be? What makes you say, oh, okay, it's going to be a different situation because I've better? It's not going to be a different situation because you're the same person that you were before that all took place. And so that is the power of having your tribe. That's finding a mentor, of finding a coach, and having those individuals that work with you hand in hand. Having the proper coach, because there are a lot of individuals that will say they're coaches, but they end up sitting there trying to give you the advice, trying to give you their advice that they utilize to get to that next level. And the thing is, there may be some times where maybe you want to provide what you did to get to that level, but that's the thing in that role of trying to say this is what you need to do. That's a consulting role. And as a coach, it's that partnership of working together, holding the flashlight together and doing that 360-degree look at your life and saying, okay, what steps can you take as an individual? What's the smallest, simplest step you can take to get to the next point that you want to get? And the thing is, as humans, as individuals, we are an expert in our own life. But the issue is that we don't do the work and we don't work on ourselves, don't find those people that can be part of our lives to help us on that journey, but understand that we have to go do that work ourselves. We can't look at this person to go on our journey for us. Like, they're there to be a guide, a mentor, to walk, to have that partnership, but you have to go do this walk. You have to go do that hard work. You have to go do the deep dive, or it's also known as the hero's journey. You got to go on your journey. You've got to go confront and face whatever that is, the demons, whatever you want to call it, and go and chop it down. Because if you don't go on this journey, you don't go on your hero's journey, turn around, come back, bruised, grown, having the progression, then what makes you think you're going to be in a better situation by going on that hero's journey but not confronting that challenge? And it's unique because that when Mike was talking about the fact that we're all broken, we all have flaws, we all have things that we need to work on. Our container, our life is cracked. And a lot of times we don't take the time to go and recreate our container and rebuild it to fit us, to allow us to grow. And so that's the importance of having your tribe, to have a coach or having somebody that you can lean on. And so that's the unique thing that I find in regards to getting into coaching and working with individuals, is understanding that I'm not perfect. I have stuff that I'm still working on, but being a couple steps ahead of somebody else, that I can be there with them, be a partner with them, and help them out through that partnership to go from wherever they're at to wanting to get to that level, that thriving, that they're growing. And so it is unique that it is the power of being able to work with individuals, because as humans, we are social creatures. We're meant to be in a social type environment, that bond, that grouping, to work with individuals. But a lot of times we try to go and do things on our own, and we think we can do it on our own. And if we ask for help, we're weak. And honestly, if you want to stay strong, you need to ask for help. And shout out to Les Brown for that quote, reformulated a little bit in my own words and whatnot. But he's talked about that if you want to stay strong, sometimes you have to ask for help. And so that's the power that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is much needed, and you've got to get that help. You've got to find somebody that you can partner with, that it's working for both sides, you as the individual and the individual that you're working with. It needs to be a cohesive unit piece, because it is two individuals working together. It's a partnership. And you'll have some individuals that want to try to fight it, and they know it's not a good fit, but they try to keep pushing on, which is crazy. I don't understand that. But if it's not working out for you as the individual trying to help somebody else out, don't try to force it, because that's going to make it worse for everybody else. You make it tough for the other individual to get to that level that they need to get to, that they're trying to work to, because that relationship isn't cohesive. It is not well received on either end. But it is unique in regards that I look at my experience and I tell people, I'm like, guys, we suck in general with our emotions. We suck truly expressing who we are, truly showing our emotions and being human, because we've grown up so much and we've been told through society that don't show emotions, don't cry, don't toughen it up and that. And it's like, your emotions is part of who you are as an individual, and it is unique. But when I look at the piece and the aspect of the coming together and working and not trying to do everything on your own, it is unique in regards that we have to go through that grieving process. When you have a loss of a relationship, it is a point that you have to grieve. But you have a lot of individuals that will try to push. They don't recognize the grief. They don't recognize the loss. And then they just keep jumping from relationship to relationship. And it doesn't work out, because the fact that you do that and you go and jump, you're not working on yourself. You're taking that baggage and the things that you need to work on don't get worked on, and that's going to the next relationship. And that just shows up in the statistics of the divorce statistics. So as I've talked about before, first marriages end up in divorce 50% of the time, which, man, that's a sad thing. But when I look at it, it makes sense, because as humans, we as individuals, as adults, have not done the necessary work. A lot of times we don't know who we are. And we're at a point that you have two individuals that don't truly love themselves, but they're looking at their party to love them. So it's a unique situation where you're looking for somebody else to love you, but you don't love yourself. And that's one of those biggest things that I tell people is the relationship we have to work on and get strong is the relationship with ourselves. We truly need to love ourselves. How do you expect to be able to pour into somebody else and love them if you don't truly love yourself? And it's one of those unique things that when you start doing the work, if you look in the mirror and you can look at yourself and say, I love you. I love you for who you are. I love you for everything that you bring to the table. I love you for your flaws, your quirks, your craziness, everything. Like it's such a relief, because if you truly love yourself, you can go love other people in a true fashion. And then if it gets to the point where you're completing yourself and somebody else is a complementary piece to you as an individual, so you create your own happiness, you build that happiness, and the other person is there to complement you to enhance that happiness, then it makes it unique in regards with if you get into a situation where they're angry, because a lot of times when we get angry, we like to push things out onto other people. And so honestly, you're not the source of the anger, there's something inside this person that they're not facing and they're pushing out onto other people. And so it's unique if you can get to the point where you truly love yourself and you understand the perspective that people are looking at and the way that they're looking at life through. A powerful thing when you consider that. And so some things that I've noticed, I'm looking at the live stream right now through Restream with the Facebook, YouTube. I've noticed that on a couple of videos, if people are making comments right now, they're not showing up on my end. I don't know why. It's unique. So if you're making comments, I'm not ignoring you. I'll go and check and see if there's comments out there. But right now, if you're making comments, I don't see it. So just know I'm not ignoring you. Thank you again for your support. If you are watching and giving comments and giving feedback, appreciate that. I'm not ignoring you though. It's just not showing. It's something that I've noticed, which is one of those unique things. I gotta go and kind of look and whatnot. But I thought it was unique. And tonight is the word of the night, unique. But been reading a book, Single on Purpose by John Kim, and he was saying that relationships aren't constant. Relationships are growing, and the only consistent life is change. And so growth is change. And I found it unique. He said that they're always changing, evolving, and growing. And so that was a relationship piece there. And your relationship with yourself is always changing, evolving, and growing. And so this is something that when you really look at it, your relationship's growing, but you're also growing, and things will adjust, things will evolve, things will change in that relationship. And I've brought this up in regards that you're looking in the aspect of the relationship. It's two people working together towards but it's also a point where you may kind of drift from each other and one person be in a season of growth. And so it's not you freaking out that they're growing. Just let them know that that's their season right now. That's for them to grow and to get to that next level, whatever it is. And so you want to be that complementary piece to that person and let them grow. Don't freak out, but understand that your time to grow may come at a later time. And so that person needs to understand too that you may have a little bit of the drift and maybe you're not together as tight-knit as you were before, but your growth is taking place. And so it's one of those unique things to really consider, that it's evolving, it's changing, it's growing. Relationships have it, and that's just part of life. And I have a Twitch user here, Mofre. Apologize if I butchered your point here, your name and whatnot. That's a good point. I'd love to hear more about that. But for Mofre, if you're watching this, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, would love to have that support for the Twitch channel. If you could subscribe to Two Native Sons channel here. And then how do you know you're going to the same place? And so that when you look at the relationship piece, with that question of how do you know you're going to the same place, that's where you've got to look and see who you are as an individual, who you are as that individual piece, but also who's this other person, and then kind of see, have the life that you see, vision for the end results, whatever it may be, and see if you're together, doing life together, go towards a common goal, whatever it may be. And so that's where you've got to look in regards that to see if you're on the same page. And so that's where it's finding those non-negotiables. It's finding those things that you don't overlap and start tearing down your boundaries and start tearing down your non-negotiables to try to blend with somebody else. If you start pulling and start tearing away your non-negotiables, your boundaries, and you start opening up the doors to try to bring somebody in that doesn't match, then that's not going to work out, and you're going to end up having that struggle to go to that point, whatever it is. And so I think it's the piece also of you doing the work on yourself and truly knowing who you are. And I think that's still a consistent, that is you're going through the process, and it does come to the fact that you're either growing or you're dying. So you're either learning through getting the education, going and working on yourself, personal development, whatever it is, and to know who you are. But this is the thing, though, we are changing every day. So it's the beautiful thing that change is the only. And so you just may get to that and you just may know truly who you are. But if you do the deep work, you do the internal work, and you look at yourself, that does open up the door that you get to the point where you know yourself better than if you just kind of went with the flow and you didn't deep work. So it is one of those interesting things that I've talked to individuals. Gary Goggins has been on the podcast before, and he's brought up the fact that a lot of people will go to couples counseling, marriage counseling and whatnot. And the fact that they bring up the fact that they go and do the therapy work for themselves, or they go and grab a coach and work on themselves, they see a bigger change occur when they're working on themselves and doing what they need to create that in them as an individual. And it's a unique thing because it is the piece that you have to continue to grow. You've got to continue to evolve as an individual. And that's one thing that John Kim talks about in the Single on Purpose, is that you still need to do yourself. He talks about the fact that in a relationship, you may start separating, you may start disconnecting from yourself because you're focused on that relationship. You're focused on the compromising with the other individual, whatever it is. And so that's where you still have this idea of single on purpose and work on yourself to stay connected to yourself, to be true to yourself. And it's one of those oxymoron things when you think about it, because you're like, single on purpose, but I'm in a relationship. You still need to focus and understand that you still need to stay connected to yourself. And that can be tough because of the demands in the relationship piece, the demands of the individual. Let's see here. We have how do you find that balance? And that's one of those unique things that to find the balance, it's going to be an individual thing. And so that as the balance piece, you've got to know who you are. You've got to find your values. You've got to make sure that you know your non-negotiables. You've got to make sure you have your boundaries set up. You've got to create your boundaries, whatever those are. And that's the unique piece, that it's each of us to our own. And so that's how do you find that balance? It's the kind of the same thing of the work-life balance. Like, what do you do as an individual? What do you truly find that's true to yourself? What are your values that you want to hold on to that are you, an individual? What are those things? And so how do you find that balance? It's each of us doing that work and knowing who we are. And so I say my balance is this way, but you may look at it and be like, that's not who I am. That's not for me. And so I can't come and say, well, this is what balance looks like, because to each of us is our own lens. It's our own perception. So you've got to ask yourself, when you look at it and you consider the idea of balance, what does balance mean to you as an individual? This is the question that you have to ask yourself, because this is an individual thing. And so you've got to ask yourself and say, okay, when I look and consider this idea of balance, what does that look like to me as an individual? And so that's where you start doing the work. You start doing those things that is true. And so it is that you'll have a lot of people that will be like, well, this isn't balanced to me. This isn't balanced to me. You need to find what balances you. You want to focus on those things that aligns with the idea and how you look at balance. Because this is the thing. If I ask you, what does success look like to you? And part of your balancing piece, whatever it is, could be that success piece. But the thing is, each of us, when we talk idea of success is different for each of us. And what it is, I don't know. But you've got to ask yourself these questions. This is up to you. Those conversation pieces, this is up to you asking those questions. But it also, when you look at it too, though, is sometimes you get overwhelmed. And so that's where it does come into the power of having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody that can be there and ask you those questions that you may not be considering, or maybe you're so overwhelmed and that person asks you, okay, if you were to look at your life in the next 6 months, what does that 6 months look like to you? Stands out to you to get to that 6-month mark of what you want to accomplish? And so it's just asking those questions. But the thing is, as individuals, we're the experts in our own life, but sometimes it's having somebody that's going to ask you questions. And so it's the questioning piece. It really is the questioning piece, but also giving that space to somebody, creating that space for somebody else to know that they're not going to be judged because you answer one way and you're like, this is what this looks like for me. And if you have somebody that is at a point that they're non-judgmental, or if they are judgmental or give some crazy stuff, that's not going to, because then you may back down on going after that because of that feeling that you've been judged, or what you think is right for you doesn't match this other person. And so this is the thing. You've got to figure out what's right for you as an individual. And who knows that? You as the individual knows what's best for you, but sometimes you have to have those questions asked. Sometimes you have to have somebody give a different perspective or bring something to light in a different way. And so it's one of those things that this question is great. How do you find that balance? What does balance look like for you? And what do you want to take place in create balance for you as an individual? So I can't do that because to each of us, the balance is going to be different. The balances look different for each of us. But I do appreciate the question. Thank you for asking that. And I don't know if that gave you any clarity or if it made it any clearer, but if it did, let me know. If there's any other questions, go ahead, fire away. That's what I'm here for, is these conversation pieces and whatnot. And then the thing with relationships or life in general, John Kim, he talks about you're not moving on, but you are moving through. And so that's the thing. When you go through the expired relationship, you have the loss of a relationship, it's going through the emotions, it's going through that storm, and understanding that the storm, the obstacle, the mountain is part of this journey to help you with your growth and progression. And so you've got to go through it. And a lot of times we don't want to go through it because it sucks. And it's a tough thing to really face because it's scary. And we start having to do the deep dive. We have to start looking and saying, okay, what do I need to work on? Who is this person that is reflected right now? Is this the true person, or am I showing up as my pseudo self? Is that true person underneath all this shit that I've got to dig through and really find what resonates with me as an individual, what sticks out for me? What is that I have to overcome? What is it that I have to bring and show up and play big and be true to myself that maybe I had given up? Maybe I had disconnected from myself from this previous relationship and put it to the back burner. Maybe I disconnected from my true self and threw it in a closet and locked the door, threw the key away. I don't know where that key's at. And I know that true person is in this closet that I've locked, but how do I get in there? I pull them out. And so it is the thing that it's going through the shit. And sometimes that sucks, but that is the power of finding your tribe. That's the power of finding somebody that can be there for you, be there with you to get through that rut, to get through that storm, to allow you to show up and be true to yourself, to show up and okay with expressing what's taking place, expressing who you are, how you're feeling, expressing that, and just having that space with somebody. And so how are you moving through that right now? How are you moving through those different pieces, whatever it is? And then when it goes to moving through that storm, moving through whatever it is, also embracing the emotions, realizing that they're there and see you, thank you for being here, but you're not going to control the situation. You're there to help me through this time, but I'm not allowing you to control it. And so it's one of those things that it's needing to have the most show up and realize that they're there and embrace, because John talks about it in here, whatever you haven't grieved is the virus you will carry into all of them. So that grief that you haven't gone through, because it is a lot, and you got to understand that there were good memories, there were bad memories. It was part of that relationship, but it is a loss. It is a relationship that's died. It was a living thing that's dead now. But you've got to go through, and you've got to go through the grieving process, because the grieving process is part of the growth process. It's part of there to help you with whatever that may be. Because if you don't go and do the work and you work on yourself and you haven't done the emotional work, whatever that is for you, you're going to go into your next relationship, and it's because you haven't done the work on yourself. You haven't done what you needed to. If you haven't grieved the loss, then you're showing up, and the things that are hanging on that you haven't grieved yet are as that virus and going into this new relationship, whatever it is. And so it is just part of the journey that I've gone on. When I read this, when I read what John's writing in this book, I was like, man, when I look back on my journey and going through, it's one of those unique things that I'm like, man, this is a beautiful thing that I've seen this before, I've experienced before. And so that's where it's the power of going and helping individuals as a coach, being there for them, because I've experienced it before. And so it's just helping people show up and be their self. And so with me, that's the focus on the divorced gentlemen that have gone through it, and giving them that space to help them show up and find that voice, to find their identity, to find who they truly are, and find that story that has been hidden, and it wants to come out and it wants to show up, but it's the pain and the emotion. And I'm a guy, I'm going to do my own. I can do it on my own. Like, good luck with it, because that really truly does suck. As guys, we suck. We need that tribe. We need to find those individuals that we can lean into. So, but even though I talk about the focus with divorced gentlemen, it is the piece that we're all human. So women are going through this. Women are having the situations of dealing with different emotions, different stories that they're telling themselves, relationships with friends, business relationships, anything of that nature. Like, it's different boats that have different storms and whatnot, but it's showing up and helping them out, giving them that space and giving them grace and helping them to give themselves grace and whatnot. So, but again, thank you guys for everything that you do. I thank you guys for your support. Thank you for you being you, and just being such an individual. And Mofre, if I am butchering your name here, I do apologize. Would love to have a deeper conversation, learn, see who you are as an individual, see how I can be of service to you, see how I can help out. I know my business partner, Patrick Murakami, is also in the same boat. And so that's something that if you want to sit down and talk, you can reach out. A couple different avenues, Instagram with myself, the Two Native Sons page. But thank you for showing up, and thank you for questions that you're asking and having the conversation here. I do appreciate that, though. But if you guys have anything, if you need help with anything, if you are stuck and you're like, I need to talk to somebody, I need to get from where I'm at right now, mine to thriving in whatever area, sit down, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what's taking place and what may be what's going on and whatnot. I'm looking here. No. But yeah, if you got anything, if you're stuck, you just need somebody to talk to, let's sit down and have the discussion. anything that you took away from this that you're watching on the live or watching on the replay, anything that you're taking away, aha moments, share it. Would love to hear what those are, and anything that maybe you see in a different light, a different perspective, share that too. Would love to see that perspective. Would love to see how you view different things, how you're viewing a situation, and see if there's something that I'm missing, maybe that I'm not seeing or whatnot. Would love to have that. But as it comes in regards with this piece is share with individuals, grow it, because ultimately to grow different pieces, it's through the social media sharing it. And again, shout out to our sponsors, that being Rock City Cafe, Derek, Angel, his wife, and Brittany. Thank you for what you guys do. Anybody that's in the Colorado Springs area, or if you come and visit Colorado Springs, go check out Rock City Cafe. Great location, community-minded, community-focused. Tabala Creative Cuisine and Jasper Axelrad. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jasper, for what you do. Thank you with Tabala, that connection point. And then Miss Sherry with the Chicken Coop out in the Black Forest area. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your heart, your passion, and your focus on the community. So again, if you guys are visiting Colorado Springs, check out those different locations. If you're in Colorado Springs, go visit them. Let them know that Scott go show some love and whatnot. But thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for you being you. You being the individual that you are, just being a great individual. I will catch you guys later. Catch you next week. All right. Peace out. Have a great night.